Time stopped as soon as she entered my life. I stared at my watch for a long time, not understanding why the hands seemed to freeze. Could it be that I was the one who froze? Or maybe time just stopped because my world didn't revolve around the usual things anymore. Everything changed as soon as she came into my life. Her name was Lisa. The night we met, everything was normal. A noisy bar, dimmed lights, laughter and conversation mixed with music. I was sitting at the bar, pretending to read the news on my phone, but actually waiting for someone who would never come. My mind was spinning with thoughts of the past, of what I was doing here, in this place where people come to forget their problems, and maybe find new ones. And then she came up behind me, touched my shoulder, and said, "Hello, stranger. Are you always this pensive?" That simple question, spoken in a soft, slightly husky voice, snapped me out of my thoughts. I turned around and saw her. Her hair was the color of a crow's wing. Her eyes were as green as the sea after a storm, and her lips, they were so soft that I wanted to forget everything in the world. I felt my heart start to beat faster, and my breathing became ragged. It was as if someone had turned off the sound around me, and only her voice remained. Sometimes I answered, trying to look calm, even though I was seething inside. "Do you often pay attention to people like me?" She smiled, and that smile lit up her face. It seemed like it was just the two of us in this bar full of people. We started talking, and time really stopped. She talked about her life, about her dreams, about things no one else had heard. And I listened, mesmerized by every word, every movement of her lips. We spent the entire evening together, talking about anything but what we did every day. It was our little escape from reality. She laughed at my jokes, and I caught myself smiling back. When she walked away, leaving only the scent of her perfume behind, I realized I was in trouble. In that moment, I realized that my life had changed forever. I didn't know where this relationship would take us, what difficulties awaited us, but one thing was clear: I couldn't let her go, even if it meant going against all the rules and laws of the world we lived in. The next day, I learned that Lisa was involved with a mafia. Her father was one of the top bosses in our town, a man feared even by those who knew no fear themselves. This man controlled entire neighborhoods, kept gangs and corrupt cops at bay. His name was awe-inspiring, and his power was absolute. But that didn't stop me. Every time I saw her, I felt everything inside me turn upside down. She became the air I breathed, the light in the darkness of my existence. We met in secret, knowing that if her family found out, we would both be in trouble. But no threat, no fear could make me give up those meetings. We lurked in the shadows, furtively exchanging kisses and promises that everything would be okay, despite the danger looming over us. One night when Lisa came to my house, I noticed that she was trembling. Her eyes were full of tears, and her hands were cold as ice. She stood in front of me, unable to utter a word, and I immediately realized that something was wrong. Finally, when she pulled herself together, she told me that her brother had discovered our meetings and was threatening her. If she didn't stop seeing me, he would help me disappear. Those words sounded like a sentence. I stood staring at her, not knowing what to do. Thoughts flashed through my mind about how crazy our situation was. We both knew we were playing with fire, but neither of us expected the flames to erupt so quickly. I could have walked away, saved my hide, but then I would have lost it forever. The thought was unbearable. I imagined living without her, and I realized that such a life had no meaning. The next few weeks passed in fear. We continued to see each other, but we were even more cautious. Every date could be our last. We avoided crowded places, choosing abandoned streets and dark alleys where no one could see us. But even in these secluded corners of the city, I could feel the fear clenching my throat, the shadow of danger following us everywhere. One night when she came to see me again, I saw that a blue mark had appeared on her face. She tried to hide it under her makeup, but I knew immediately where it had come from. Anger boiled up inside me, but I tried to hold back so I wouldn't scare her even more. "What's wrong?" I asked, trying to speak calmly, even though I was seething inside. She looked away, as if ashamed to admit what had happened. Then she finally answered, "My brother saw us yesterday. He said he would give us one last chance. If we keep seeing each other, he'll tell my father." My fingers clenched into fists, but I forced myself to relax. Lisa's words echoed in my head. I remained silent, not knowing what to say. All I wanted to do was protect her, but I realized my options were limited. I was a nobody in this world, and she belonged to a family that the whole town respected and feared. "He wouldn't dare tell his father," she whispered, but there was uncertainty in her voice. "Father wouldn't forgive him if he knew he'd laid a hand on me." "But he's your brother," I objected. "Doesn't he realize he's hurting you?" Lisa lowered her head, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He doesn't care about me. For him, the most important thing is to preserve the honor of the family. He thinks I'll dishonor them if I keep seeing you." I pulled her to me and hugged her tightly, trying to give her the full force of my love and protection. But deep down, I knew it was only an illusion of safety. The world we lived in was cruel and merciless. One wrong move and we could both be destroyed. "We have to do something," I said, looking into her eyes. "We can't just sit around and wait for them to find us." She nodded, wiped away her tears, and tried to smile, but it was sad and tired. We both realized that we were on the edge of a precipice, and every step could be out to be our last. But instead of retreating, we decided to hold on to each other tighter, hoping that love could overcome any obstacles. But then something unexpected happened. One of our mutual friends offered me a job. Nothing serious, just delivering packages. I accepted, thinking it would help me earn some money and give Lisa a chance to get away from here. In the back of my mind, I hoped that once we had saved enough money, we could escape and start a new life away from all this chaos. The first few days of work seemed easy. The packages were small, and no one was particularly interested in their contents. I traveled around the city, leaving the packages in predetermined places, got the money, and returned home. But soon I began to notice strange things. The people I dealt with looked suspicious, and conversations were conducted only in half-whispers. One day, when I opened one of the packages to check what was in it, I realized I was delivering something forbidden. My heart raced faster as the realization came to me. I couldn't believe I was involved in such a dirty deed. But worse, I realized that now I wouldn't be able to get out of the game easily. These people don't forgive mistakes, and they don't let go of those who are connected to them. I realized I was being set up. When I told Lisa about it, she cried. Tears streamed down her face, and she looked at me with such horror that I wanted to take back every word. She knew what I was getting into, and she was scared for me. But I was sure I could handle it. After all, I was willing to do anything for her. A few months went by. The job became more dangerous, the money started coming in, but the anxiety grew. Every day I woke up thinking that today could be my last. One night, driving home, I came across two guys standing outside my car. They were from Lisa's family, and their looks spoke for themselves. "You think you can just disappear like that?" One of them said, stepping closer. "No one walks away from us." His voice was as icy as steel. I tried to explain to them that I loved her, that all I wanted was happiness for the two of us. But they wouldn't listen. One fist slammed into my face, the other into my stomach. Pain shot through my body, and I fell to the ground, feeling the blood drain from my mouth. They stood over me, looking down at me, and then turned and walked away, leaving me lying in the dirt. I lay still for a few minutes, trying to gather my thoughts. My head was buzzing, and my body ached so much that it felt like every cell was screaming in pain. But the worst part wasn't my physical state, it was the realization that I was trapped. These guys weren't going to stop. They wanted to show me that no one could get away from them with impunity. Lisa found me an hour later. She helped me up and drove me home. All the way to the apartment, she was silent, and I thought about what I had done wrong. Why did I let myself get caught up in this story? Why didn't I leave sooner? A lot of questions swarmed in my head, but there were no answers. Only pain and anxiety. When we got home, she suddenly started talking. First quietly, almost in a whisper, and then louder in a broken voice. I can't live like this anymore. I don't want you to suffer because of me. I tried to calm her down, to take her hand, to tell her that everything would be all right, but she interrupted me. No, it won't be okay. My brother already knows about us, and soon my father will know about it. You need to run before it's too late. I looked at her, trying to see if she was serious, but her eyes were so determined that I couldn't object. She was right. If I stayed here, we'd both be in big trouble. Lisa's family wouldn't forgive such a betrayal, and I was well aware that my life hung in the balance. But how can I leave you? I asked, feeling the lump in my throat. I couldn't live knowing that you were here, in danger. Lisa looked at me with such pain that it felt like my heart was being torn apart. You have to think of yourself, she said, barely holding back tears. If you stay, we'll both get hurt. I won't let that happen. Run, find a place where you'll be safe. Maybe someday. She didn't finish the sentence, but I knew what she meant. Maybe someday we could meet again, when things had calmed down. But that wasn't possible right now. I knew I had to listen to her. Staying here was too risky a move. We sat in silence, embraced, and she cried. I could feel her warm tears dripping down my neck, and I knew that this moment would be the last time we would be together. Everything that bound us together was crumbling before my eyes, and nothing could stop it. Understand, she whispered, pulling me closer. I love you, but your life comes first. You have to go. I nodded, unable to say a word. Everything inside of me was turning upside down, but I knew there was no other way out. We said goodbye, and she left, leaving me alone in an empty apartment. I packed my things and left that night, never looking back. I left a note for her, letting her know I was expecting her call. But the calls never came. A few days later, I learned that her brother's body had been discovered. Rumor had it that his own father had taken him out for betrayal. As the years passed, my memories of Lisa faded. Life went on, and I tried not to think about the past. I got a regular job, made new friends, tried to create the appearance of a normal life. But deep down, I always remembered her, that we could have been happy. One day, many years later, I returned to my hometown. I had some business to take care of, and I decided to take the opportunity to walk around the familiar places. The city had changed, become different, but some streets and buildings were still the same. I was walking down the street, immersed in my thoughts, when suddenly I heard a familiar voice. Hello, stranger. I froze in place, not believing my ears. When I turned around, I saw her. Lisa. She stood opposite me, as beautiful as before, but in her eyes, I could read the fatigue and sadness of years of loneliness. Lisa, I breathed out, unable to believe this was happening in real life. She came closer, took my hand, and smiled. Her smile was as genuine as it had been back when we were together. I thought I'd never see you again, she said, hope in her voice. We stood on the street, surrounded by the hustle and bustle of the city, but nothing existed for us but ourselves. We talked, reminiscing about the past, sharing our stories. It turned out that Lisa had also left her family, choosing freedom and independence. She moved to another city, started a new life, but, like me, never forgot about our history. You know, she said, looking into my eyes, I always believed that one day we would meet again. That fate would give us a second chance. I took her hand, pulled her against me, and felt the warmth of her body warming me from the inside. In that moment, I realized that everything that had happened between us was not in vain. Our suffering, fears, and losses had brought us back to each other. We went for a walk around the city, holding hands, savoring the moment. Although many things had changed, our feeling remained the same. We realized that we were ready to start again, despite all the obstacles and threats. That's how this chapter ended, but the story, full of hope, love, and faith in a better future, continued. We knew there were challenges ahead, but now we were ready to face them together.